This is Conscious Action for Truth, the cat in Cat Chats. Focused locally on New Mexico, but with an eye on the global, we will expose the infection apocalypse, the injection apocalypse, the election apocalypse. This is the time when every lie will be revealed and all that is hidden in darkness will be revealed in the light. Welcome. Listen to the courageous voices of truth in New Mexico. Hold on to your hat. I am your host, Mahara. Kathleen Dudley is Canadian-born, lives in the United States, and claims both a Canadian-born sovereignty and U.S. citizenship. Kathleen currently lives in New Mexico. A grassroots activist, she spearheaded a 7-year-long successful community educational process to stop drilling and fracking from coming into Mora County and San Miguel counties, and kept out one of the largest corporations in the world, Royal Dutch Shell. Today, Kathleen is in court representing herself, sui juris, using the US and state constitutions as the foundation of her lawful arguments. She is exposing the conflict of interest of the judge presiding over 2 of her cases, in the meantime revealing the unconstitutional cabal in the Las Vegas District Court. Her fight is the fight for all men and women who understand that no man is master of anyone unless we capitulate. Her message: sovereignty is a position of awareness, empowerment, and action, and we are born sovereign. Welcome, Kathleen. Good to see you.
Well, it's a real pleasure, Mahara. Thank you very much for the work you do. As we know, the power is in the media and the exposure and shining the light upon all of the criminality, all the unconstitutional work that is being done here and across the world.
That's so true. And being Canadian, we got the truckers up in Ottawa. And go truckers. Who would have thought that it would be Canada that is the first one? But you might have some insight on that, being the fighter you are.
Well, I don't know. I mean, and the fighter you are, and the fighters I continue to meet across this great country and across Canada and across the world. You know, as we were talking before this recording, all of these lines between countries and the boundaries of states and provinces, they're just all fictitious. It's all fluid, it's all one, just like we are a part of nature, a part of the animals, the wild cats, the wild canines, and all of the critters. We cannot be divided, even though that is one of the greatest tools used against us, divide and conquer. So I do not recognize the division that is put before us in this mind numbing game of telling us you fit here and you fit here. I am sovereign, as we all are. We're born sovereign, and no man rules or decides what we can do in life. And as you know, the most beautiful thing is when we are silent, we capitulate. And so I just want to encourage people to recognize that no one is over us. That is a master-slave system. And it takes a lot. That's, I think, the biggest thing, to realize how empowered we are. And that if we recognize our power, then we stand in it, and then we act. And that's what I am doing. And that's what you're doing. And that's why we're here today on this great opportunity for this interview. So thank you, Mahara.
You're so welcome. And that sovereignty that we have given by our Creator was enshrined in our Constitution. And it gives us It is not given by man. And
It is-
that is the difference, because anything that man can give can be taken away. So with that, Kathleen, you are exposing something pretty gnarly, corrupt, shall we say, in San Miguel County. And as I see it, it's a microcosm of a macrocosm. It's in the court system. There's something very corrupt going on in the court system in New Mexico and really all over the United States. So tell us about what you've encountered and what's happening right now with it all.
Yes, in a short synopsis, I was sued by a wealthy landowner to gain access that is not constitutionally theirs across my property. They were suing for a prescriptive easement. Now, under the Fourth Amendment, I am secure in my person, my papers, my property, and no one can reasonably seize my property. So I claim these rights, and yet this family, and so I claim that in the court using the Constitution fundamentally to support my claims. Now, this family has wanted to use this property to access theirs because it's more convenient, yet they do actually have a deed of easement. They're not landlocked. And there is also an alleged county road to access their property. But because of their wealth and their political connections, they're using the court system and the attorney to present their case. Now, in the process of this, I've also filed a civil restraining order against someone who's been harassing me on my property. It turns out he's a crossover witness, and he is also was a client to the judge who sits in both cases. And the judge did not reveal that he had represented this ex-criminal, this ex-convicted criminal who has been harassing me. And this criminal has been in jail and prison for a total of 14 years in both New Mexico and Colorado for very violent crimes. And since I filed the civil restraining order, I've challenged the judge for his bias. And this ex-con has violated the temporary restraining order twice, and the judge has taken no action. So the grievances against this judge who sits on both of these cases is even more egregious because the same attorney sits on both of these cases as well. And they all know one another. There's crossover witnesses. And one of the witnesses in the easement case has been convicted and charged on 2 harassment cases against me in the past. So it's this unconstitutional cabal of entities. And I've been exposing it with solid evidence showing the bias and the unjust ruling of violating my constitutional rights for ruling in favor of this landowner to have access through my public property. So it's been a very volatile experience.
So just so I understand here, the judge, Judge Michael Aragon, I believe is his name, he represented this criminal who is harassing you before he was a judge, when he was a lawyer, and he hasn't disclosed that, which that is illegal, I believe.
Well, it's a violation of the New Mexico Constitution, Article 18, that describes the disqualification of judges. So if you have been a judge prior to your, an attorney prior to your judgeship, and you've represented anyone in a lesser court, you must disqualify yourself. Plus, it's a violation of judicial ethics and canons that very clearly reveal that if there's any question about one's position in this, then you must reveal it, and he has not.
Do you know what he represented him for? Was it one of the violent, was it a criminal case?
It was a criminal case for property damage, and there was some kind of loophole that he got him out on that criminal case, and this person, ex-convict, he's a felon, has actually done property damage, including theft of property on my property, and I have legal proof through the Mora Sheriff's Department. It's on video and on audio.
So what have you done to try and correct this?
Well, in the courts, when I established my jurisdiction in the trial on the easement case, I established myself as sui juris. So I am independent, stating that there is no jurisdiction over me. That is very, very important that people must understand that. The courts want to put you into pro se, which puts them into their maritime contract law jurisdiction. So you have no independence. So I claim that on all of my documents. I claim that when I present myself, whether it's in court or in my written documents. And then I challenged the judge at the beginning of the hearings, and I tell him that you have taken the oath to uphold the Constitution of the United States of America and the Constitution of New Mexico. Is that not correct? And the judge must actually answer that. And therefore, then I say, and then you must uphold the constitutional rights, the mission statement for the courts of New Mexico, which states that you must support our constitutional rights that we claim. And they must also say yes. If they say no, they're actually perjuring their oath.
So did he say yes?
Well, the first time in the trial, he initially was hemming and hawing. And so then I had to make the statement that by not saying that you have taken the oath, then you must step down, because you are actually perjuring, you are actually treasonously representing this court, and it is now an unconstitutional court, and there can be no justice by your presiding here. And so then he paused, and I had told him to step down. And then I asked him, I made the statement again, and then he answered yes, that he had taken the oath to uphold the Constitution to which he is bound. And so that is a really important, that's a key, because that puts us in the jurisdiction of common law, of being able to claim our rights, our birthrights, which are upheld and written in the Bill of Rights that are within the Constitution of the United States of America, and upheld and stated in not only the Supreme Court of New Mexico, underlining the Constitution is the supreme law of the land, which means that in maritime law, in contract law, which is an administratively run justice legal system, it's not a justice system, their statutes cannot override the Constitution, because the Constitution is the supreme law of the land. So anyone who has actually gotten a citizenship in this country and raised their hand, they've had to take a test. And when they're asked, is this, about the Constitution, the answer is it is the supreme law of the land, right? And
Yes.
no statute can abrogate it. No statute can override it. No statute can conflict with it. So we take the stance of constitutional law being the entire foundation of our court cases.
Well, our New Mexico Supreme Court is actually in violation of the Constitution recently. It is obstructing justice. It's obstructing a citizen's petition for grand jury, which is written into our New Mexico Constitution, as you know. So this is very interesting. I'm sure they love you, Kathleen, and in the courts when they see you walking in. They're going, oh no, here she comes. But there's something else I wanted to ask you, because there's another little part to this story, isn't there? There was a man murdered last year in September, I think September, I remember it.
Yes, John Serna.
Yes, he was murdered by someone. And why don't you tell that story? You tell that story.
Well, I found out about this a while back, and then I read the Santa Fe, New Mexican article on it. John Serna was murdered in cold blood. He was not carrying a weapon. David Griego, who is the uncle to Michael Aragon and Abigail Aragon, who sit 2 of 3 judges in the 4th Judicial District Court. There has been preferential treatment because David Griego shot at close range an unarmed man twice in the left temple and once in the chest. He murdered him. The police did not charge him, did not take him to jail.
They didn't even mention his name, did they, in their initial report?
No, they did not. There was absolutely nothing done to him. And so in the article by the Santa Fe, New Mexican, they expressed great concern for conflict of interest. And so here I am with Michael Aragon and his conflict of interest, and not recusing himself, not even mentioning. I just happened to find on the New Mexico court database the document that showed that he had represented Armijo in this criminal case. And so I went on KFUN and presented this. And isn't it interesting that the next day, Griego turned himself in.
Oh, he turned himself in. Okay.
The next day after the radio interview. So the heat was put on to the 4th Judicial District Court because, and also Michael Aragon was appointed, as was his sister, but he was appointed in May of 2021 by our current governor, acting as governor. I don't like to give too much credibility to even the position at this point, but he has to run in an election to claim his seat. So already he has 2 egregious violations or certainly a violation of not exposing his representation, and 2 challenges, most definitely, for conflict of interest. And we're really working hard to expose the unjust, the unlawful nature and the violations of the mission statement of upholding the Constitution and doing justice for the people, because they're not.
That's so true. And I just want to reiterate this part of it, as far as these 2 judges in Las Vegas, brother and sister, their uncle murdered a man in cold blood. And there was no investigation done. As far as I understand, it was completely swept under the rug. This is so, it's like Wild West. This is so corrupt.
Well, it's interesting. You use the words that I've described New Mexico ever since moving here in 1998. And so it obviously hits us in a very similar way. They hired a bar attorney, and I don't know if people understand this, but bar attorneys are in cahoots with the judges and the court system. They pay one another, and it is absolutely a criminal situation back and forth. but the acronym BAR, B-A-R, is British Accreditation Registry. And we know in Latin, Regus is king. So we're talking about the bar attorneys are affiliated with Britain and their allegiance is to the king. And so it's, and I don't know how many people understand this, but when they are licensed within their own private club. It has nothing to do with any other overseen body. They are just a private corporation at law. And they even say at law. They're not in law. They're not for law. They're at law. So they're almost like outlaws, right? And they always, you know, for the most part, I don't know if anyone's had any great successes that are actually lawful. I know there are many successfuls that are legal using statutes and corporate administrative methods, but actually under the Constitution, actually supporting our own birthrights, if people can ever find lawful resolution in a court where you're under maritime contract law. It does not exist.
It's how Britain, the country I grew up in, snuck itself back in after the Declaration of Independence. It didn't take too long before they snuck themselves back in, but that's a whole other story. But it's affecting us all today, and it's affecting you in this court system dealing with a corrupt judge. So there's a brother and sister, and the third judge, I believe, didn't you take a complaint to the head judge?
Yes, I did, because when a judge perjures his oath by violating and not upholding my own rights to my right to my property and allows another party to claim rights on mine, that is actually a violation of my Fourth and Fifth Bill of Rights, the Fourth and Fifth Amendments. So I am secured to have my secured rights on my property. No one can come in lawfully and claim any rights on my property. They didn't even claim constitutional rights because they have none. So in the Fourth Judicial District Court, there are 3 judges. There is the chief judge and then the other 2 presiding judges. The chief judge, Flora Gallegos, has the authority to remove a judge who perjures his oath, who creates treason against the Constitution. When you war against the Constitution, when you do not uphold the constitutional rights, then that should, in a lawfully functioning constitutional court, result in a judge being removed from office. So I did make a complaint. I did a filing of a number of documents showing the violations of due process of law, the violations of my constitutional rights, the perjuring of his oath on the specific cases, and the violation of just due process of law throughout the whole proceedings. And Flora Gallegos made no comment, took no action. What I then realized as I was going through my documents was that a number of years ago, when one of the witnesses on the easement case was brought before the magistrate by the state of New Mexico for harassment against me, the attorney who represented him was Flora Gallegos.
Oh my goodness.
So here we have this little cabal of conflicts of interest everywhere. So when I claim that there is bias and conflict of interest in the 2 cases where the same judge, the same attorney are making these cases against me and the judge ruling against me, that ruling is null and void, because not only did he violate my constitutional rights, but he perjured his oath, and he did not recuse himself for his own conflict of interest. So it's just this one big mess, and they just keep throwing it up in the air and creating more and more fireworks. In the meantime, they accuse me of being a menace, of someone who needs to be abated. Their ad hominem attack by this judge, by this attorney against me is so remarkable, because there is nothing that I have done other than claim my constitutional, my rights based upon how the Constitution is laid it out in the Bill of Rights. With my First Amendment rights to free speech, they're claiming that I don't have any free speech rights, number one. They're claiming I have no right to my property and that anyone can come in at any point in time. They're continually stomping on my own sovereignty, and I refuse to stay quiet. But the problem, Mahara, is that they're used to everyone being quiet.
I was going to say that. That was exactly what I was going to say. They have the whole community. They're like a little mafia. They have the whole community controlled through families, through cousins, and people have learned to keep quiet. I mean, I lived in an area in San Miguel, which is known for having been kept quiet by that exact group of people. So you coming in as a white woman as well, boy, you've kicked the hornet's nest, Kathleen.
Well, I have. And when I worked with my community a number of years ago, 7 years of working educationally and standing up and holding the feet to the fire on not allowing this fracking in, we actually asserted our birthrights. We refused to work within their regulatory system of law because we knew it wasn't written for us. It was written by the corporations. So today, what's very interesting is when you go and read the mission statement on the New Mexico courts website, you'll see that it is all about justice. It's all about the people. It's all about supporting the Constitution. But when you go to the Dun & Bradstreet website and you put in New Mexico courts, you see that they are one of almost 1,500 companies that are for profit, doing business with a CEO, and it is all administrative, and it has nothing to do with justice. So they are actually in fraud. The court system is in fraud. They are tricking the people into thinking that they are about justice. So that is why it is so important that when we go before one of these judges acting as a judge, that we declare our sui juris jurisdiction, and that we hold them to the Constitution, and we expose them otherwise for being fraudulent, because the whole justice system, so-called justice system, is all about trickery. It's all about word spelling, and we must know that. But our own posture is actually very simple, and it is very easy to learn. The hardest thing is to unlearn what we've been taught about the fact that we have no rights, about that we never will win, about the fact that we are the slave to the master. All of those things are the hardest, but to actually learn how to stand up for ourselves, that's the simplest.
So what do you expect to come out of this? Where do you see it going? And is there any way that people can help you?
Well, I need to get more flyers out about the conflict of interest of Michael Aragon in the 4th Judicial District Court. So I could use help distributing these flyers throughout Guadalupe County and the city of Las Vegas. That would be one. The other thing is that we need to become educated. The more of us who stand in our sovereign place, the more powerful we are. Every time there is a lie that is stated, we must rebut it. We have been taught to be silent. We must be vigilant in our response. We must go against the very entrainment of silence. And it takes a relearning, but it's possible.
Is there somewhere that people can go to start this process, or how did you learn it?
Well, there are two people, Margie and Jack Flynn. Take Back Our Rights at yahoo.com is their email, and you can Google them, and they have a website. And they are two constitutionally based advocates and teachers, and they're phenomenal. They, in fact, used to live in New Mexico, and they've won hundreds and hundreds of cases using the Constitution as a foundation. They can also reach me at my email, seaside reflexology at protonmail.com. Maybe you could put that link in this.
I'll put the link in under this. There'll be a link.
Very good. And so that is where it really begins. It's our education. And that is the most powerful thing we have, and our minds. Because when we really use our minds, because this court system is not very smart, and the players, these actors, this theater that is presented to us, it's not smart, maybe clever, a lot of trickery. Mm-hmm. We have much more intelligence. We have much more capacity than we give credit to ourselves. And when we start peeling these layers of the onion off and see just how powerful we actually are and can be in light of all of this trickery and the deception, then we will preside. We will succeed in everything we do.
I believe you're right. So we need to sign off here. Any last words, Kathleen?
Well, I think the most important thing to understand is that the deception is broad. It's everywhere. And the more we see that, and the more we stand up against it and take action, then the greater the chance is that we will maintain and create the freedom that we want for our children and our children's children, because it's their legacy that this is all about. And thank you, Mahara, for this opportunity.
You're so welcome. And what you say about the children is really, that is what it's about. And taking it back around to those truckers in Canada, hearing all the children, some of them as young as 5 and 6 years old, cheering them on over the trucker radio. That's what they are doing it for. And that's what you are doing, what you do for. That's what we're in this for the children. So thank you, Kathleen. I appreciate what you're doing. And we'll definitely get back together and follow you as you do battle and win with this corrupt court system.
Thank you.